Welcome to the Solo Mo Show, a weekly podcast hosted by Corey O'Brien, the social media strategist at Heat and author of thefutureofads.com.
And I'm Adam Helway, CEO of the digital marketing agency Secret Sushi Creative.
Each episode, we discuss the intersection of social, local, and mobile. Our goal is to help you understand these topics so you can integrate them into your marketing and advertising. Today is January 31st, 2012, and this is episode number 4. So Adam, how's it going today?
It's going all right, man. This is already the end of January. Can you believe it?
It's going fast. It's crazy.
How is it going on your end?
It's going well. For those listening to the audio version of this podcast, Adam and I are toying around a little bit with broadcasting these podcasts out live via Hangouts. That's the Google Hangout product. And so we've been kind of learning lessons as we get up to speed with how to actually make this work, but hopefully it's something that we can perfect and use going forward. But definitely been interesting to get a lot of different technologies working together. I know I've got about 6 apps open right now that are all trying to route audio from one app to another and allow us to record and do video. So hopefully somebody will smooth this process out for us. But until then, it seems to be working. So
yeah, and I'm hearing I feel like we're doing the podcast inside like Mount Shasta Caverns or something, because I'm hearing the echo, because we've got both Google Hangout going, which of course has audio, and we want to make sure that the folks, we do have a couple folks joining us, and we're thankful for it in the Google Hangout live as we record this, and then also we're doing this through Skype, so the audio is getting caught through there, and you know, creating a Corey feedback loop in my head. But I'm gonna try to bear with it, and we'll get through it here. And you know what we hope to do with the Google Hangout, actually, even more specifically, rather than just having you guys watch us here with a mic in front of our face and hearing us do this live, is to actually share some of the links and some of the things that we're talking about directly in the chat room in Google Hangout, for instance, so you guys can follow along in that way. And it also probably allow us to get some really cool stuff directly from people who are participating in the Google Hangout. So if you see some resources out there or some other interesting things based on the topic that we're talking about, or have something that you want to ask us directly during the episode, well, then there you go. You can pop it in there and make it even more interactive.
Indeed. We'll do our best to keep an eye on the chat and make sure we're addressing any questions that come up. So,
And we're going to do something a little bit different beyond the Google Hangout, right, Corey? And this was your initial idea of, in the last 3 episodes that we've had, we've done it kind of, you know, we've taken topics that we found of interest that we felt we could kind of discuss and bring some things to light. It's okay. I think the format is fine. I think we've done really, really well. We've been happy with it. But what we want to do now is kind of change the format up a bit. And you decided to say, look, let's do kind of a theme this time, and let's discuss something all pretty much around one topic during the podcast. And so this week, I'll let you lead off with the topic of choice.
yeah, so I thought with the Super Bowl coming up that it would be a great week to dive into second screen viewing. And this is the idea of using either a tablet or a computer or even a smartphone to browse the internet or browse social networks while you're watching TV. And we're seeing a lot of companies really start to amp up the idea of second screen marketing heading into the Super Bowl. A lot of really interesting stories coming out, a lot of really interesting programs, and so I thought it would be a great time to discuss some of those, talk about the idea of second screen viewing, what are the advantages, what are the challenges currently, what are some of the programs and applications that marketers should be aware of, and how best to utilize those to really get the message out there. So, you know, seemed like a perfect time for that conversation and a good chance to really start out with a single topic podcast. So I'm glad that we were able to get that going.
Well, cool. I mean, let's go ahead and get to it here. Let's get our hands dirty. And I think kind of the thing that you know, really set it off was you and I guess we consider ourselves early adopters, right? Would you consider yourself that?
I definitely would. I think I've subscribed to things that the inventors of the product haven't even started using it yet. So I'm probably on the early side of early adopter.
And so, do you end up using either your smartphone or your tablet, or funny enough, included in a lot of these discussions we see are also e-readers. Do you end up using those simultaneously while maybe having the TV on in the evening?
I've explored it a little bit. I used Into Now when that first came out. I thought that the technology behind Into Now, sort of Shazam for TV, where you can basically let your smartphone listen to the current program and pick up what you're watching for you. I thought that was interesting, so I played around with that for a while. I gave Get Glue a try just to test out some of the gamification side of things. They've got a lot of interesting things going on with badges and the like. So I've definitely played around with some of these technologies, though I'm not, it's not part of my everyday workflow, I guess you would say.
Well, so what it sounds like is because you're an early adopter, you're aware of some of the cool applications, apps that are out there for your mobile device, and so therefore that's what's driven you to try them out.
Yeah, I think, try it, get a feel for what each application is trying to achieve and what the advantages and disadvantages are. But, truth be told, I don't actually watch a lot of TV, so it's not something where I'm out there trying to find new shows and meet other people that enjoy the same shows that I do. It's, I'll occasionally be watching something, whether it's a movie or a one-time special that I think would be interesting to share out, but I don't watch a lot of new shows every episode every week for the new episode. I'm not watching TV in that way, and so I haven't really found a use for a lot of these applications in my own TV viewing process. What about you, Adam?
Yeah, well, I do actually use it quite a bit. I mean, in the evening when I want to step away from my desktop computer or whatever and get away from having to deal with work, or when you're on the computer all day, the first thing you try to do, right, is to get away from the computer for some time. But funny enough, you end up then instead sitting down with either your smartphone or your tablet in hand, and you end up reading just as if you were to be reading the newspaper, but instead you're reading things like the blogs or the news or just checking out Facebook or something like that. But I do actually find myself as I'm sitting there with my wife with the TV on, doing things like checking in to certain applications and such, which we'll go into it a little bit more about kind of the mechanics of that and how that works. And also even doing some research and such about things that I see or hear on the television while I'm sitting there. So I do find myself doing that quite often, and that kind of leads us into the behavior that Nielsen found with um, a number of the mainstream users of tablets, smartphones, and ebook readers. And I'm trying to kind of look through the study here. I'm ashamed to say I don't remember the exact sampling that they went ahead and surveyed, but that 42% of tablet owners say that they use their tablet on a daily basis while watching TV, and that's very close to smartphone users who are just barely behind that, which is 40%, using those devices on a daily basis simultaneously while watching TV.
Right.
And that's just now, right? That's I haven't been able to check back in 2010 and 2009, but I'd imagine that that's obviously an increasing number. And the type of activity that those folks are doing while using their tablet isn't always necessarily related to the television,
Hmm.
but a considerable amount of the activity that they are engaging in with those devices are actually related to social networking and discussing shows, discussing, excuse me, with others what's going on with the shows that they're watching, researching about the shows that they are watching and the actors and the topics and so on that they're watching. But even more interesting regarding advertising, it's also them researching products or services that they see advertised, and even trying to follow up and pursue deals that they see advertised on commercial breaks. Um, so it sounds like maybe in your end, you might not necessarily be in that in that realm of folks that are out there looking at, what's that deal that they mentioned on that commercial?
Yeah, apparently I'm soon to be in the minority of folks who aren't using a tablet or a smartphone. The earliest stats that I could find, or not the earliest, but the earliest meaningful stats that I could find were from a January study that Yahoo did, and they actually found that 86% of people who use the mobile internet do so with their mobile device while watching television. So basically, anybody, or 86% of people that browse the internet using their phone also browse the internet using their phone while watching TV, which is a significantly high percentage. So I think you can kind of follow that back through these numbers. So you've got 86% of people who use their phone to browse the internet, do so while watching TV. 40% do so on a daily basis. And then of those people, it looks like about 20% are actually doing so to look up the products or services discussed on TV or look up information related to the show. So, you've got what looks like a lot of people actually just kind of browsing both their phone and watching TV at the same time, which I think is interesting. They're splitting their attention between those two. But a non-trivial number of people are actually using their phone or their tablet device to look up information related to what they're watching. And I think this presents tremendous opportunities for both the networks in terms of getting promotion for their shows, but also for the products that are either advertising during the commercial break or potentially even advertising in the show itself through product placement and the like. And that's why we're seeing, really a whole new category of applications appear, which is these second screen viewing applications, some of which, like Shazam, are targeted specifically at the commercials. Others, like Get Glue, are really targeted at a variety of check-in opportunities, one of which is TV. And then you've got Into Now and programs like that that are really focused exclusively on the TV environment. So, as all of these are battling for consumer attention and usage, it makes for a really interesting landscape right now with a lot of opportunities and a lot of chances to get out there and experiment and see what works. And I think we're already starting to see some advertisers make really smart use of these technologies.
Yeah, it's the number, right? We said was kind of hovering around 20% at the moment, for the folks that are out there actually actively searching for information about the products or services they see advertised. And at the moment, I mean, we're barely starting to hit, just scratch the surface a little bit with the kind of offers and things that are starting to pour out in commercials that address that second screen experience audience, so to speak, out there. We have a list of a few folks that we can address, but for instance, this week, knowing that we were going to be recording this topic, I saw Progressive Insurance and I saw TurboTax, both of those companies, completely separate companies, and they've got a Shazam logo in the bottom corner that pops up and says, Shazam this for more information. When you go to, I think it was there was some old Navy commercials, and the old Navy commercials were more like music videos. They had 2 or 3 of them that were original songs that were created to kind of advertise some product line, but they kind of did it under the guise of a song. And then at the beginning of those, they would have it where you could Shazam that. They'd have the little logo pop up and you could Shazam that. And I went ahead and did that. I tried it out, and it ends up taking you actually to iTunes and showing you the song is available to download. But back then, that didn't surprise me, seeing Shazam on there, because it was a song, right? Shazam is one of the earliest iPhone apps, and actually kind of wowed people at first with its ability, like you said, to just listen to audio and then suddenly go online and find that song and tell you what the song was. And so it wasn't a surprise that a commercial with music would be able to interact with Shazam. But now, as you also were talking about, is Shazam is doing a lot in just actually almost doing QR codes for audio, right?
Right.
So instead of whipping out the camera on your phone and then scanning something, you're whipping out the phone and then just letting it listen to the audio in the background, and then it's taking you to additional information or a product offer, coupons. I think I was actually looking at Shazam because they're making actually quite a big play in this space right now, that they're working with USA Networks to take you to behind the scenes and additional content to some of their shows over the next season.
Hmm.
And so it's quite interesting to see this application start to be, to branch off from just identifying music to really just kind of identifying audio and saying, great, now that we've identified that audio, just tell us what you want us to do next, Mr. Advertiser, Mr. Brand, and we'll go on that direction and send people there. And it really is just simply audio QR codes.
Yeah. And Shazam has really been kind of the leader in the space, in my opinion. And part of that is, like you said, they started from a background as a music recognition app. And so they built up a significant audience by allowing people to tag music and recognize what that song was. And so, as an extension of that, a lot of the advertiser integration using Shazam relied around music. And it only makes sense that was the audience at the time. So you saw things like Old Navy having a commercial that really looks like a 30-second music video. It's based around a song, and so somebody Shazams that song and they can download a version of that song to play on their own iPod. And then while they're doing so, they can get coupons for Old Navy and get additional offers. And that was really how this whole idea of second screen couponing and second screen extensions of television commercials came to be. And as that technology evolves, we're starting to see companies take it in new and, I think interesting ways. So, you mentioned Progressive Insurance, and Progressive Insurance isn't what you typically associate with being a musical brand, but really they're using QR codes they're using Shazam like a QR code to connect the TV to a mobile experience. And once you've Shazammed that TV spot, you can launch into any type of mobile experience you want. So it doesn't need to be limited to music. It can be video. It could be pre-ordering a video game. It could be adding an event to your calendar. There's really a number of actions that can be taken. So, we're seeing brands kind of experiment with that. And part of the reason is, like I mentioned, Shazam's audience. Shazam claims to have upwards of 175 million people that have the Shazam app installed on one of their devices. And, that's by no means a small number. That's a pretty significant audience. And a lot of those folks are people who downloaded the application just to tag music. And so it's going to take a while for them to think of pulling their phone out and having it at the ready while they're watching TV. But you've already got this install base. You're not trying to convince people to install a new application. You're just trying to convince people to use an application that they know and like in a new way.
Well, and that really gives them, that gives them the edge in that space, so to speak, because of having an installed user base that is used to using the phone, recognizes that logo when they see it, understands what it means to use it. Their closest competitor in the kind of audio capturing space or audio fingerprinting space is Into Now, as you mentioned before. And Into Now, the interesting thing was, right, Into Now, the difference between Shazam and Into Now, both applications, both available on mobile devices, on the iPad, on the iPhone, and so on, is that what Into Now was focused on is, rather than music initially, which Shazam was doing, is they were actually almost in real time fingerprinting almost as much mainstream television as they possibly could. And so news, for instance, could be broadcasted, and of course newscasts, 6 o'clock news, it's the first time that it's on, but somehow Into Now was able to identify, if you were to go ahead and take your mobile device out and let it listen to your news, your 6 o'clock news, it would know what channel, what news it was right there, because they were actually almost, again, in real time fingerprinting that audio. And so that library of audio was continuously building up. So whether it's something that you kind of recorded on your TiVo and then watched,
Yep.
Or whether it was something that you were watching live, it was capable of doing that. And so Shazam, which again wasn't focused on TV at the time, very much just focused on the music. I mean, it was really the fingerprinting information was easy for it to, was at a limit for it to collect because it was collecting fingerprinted information on content that already was produced and available. Right, a CD is pressed, it's released, and it's out there, and then it fingerprints it. And people don't all watch that TV show, that they don't all listen to that CD at exactly the same time. And so Into Now kind of had this really interesting edge, but Shazam seems to have now, you know, found a way to work within that limitation by working directly with certain brands and have those brands really like Shazam brand their particular commercial spots so that people know that they can interact with them. And it almost in a way is like a call to action when you see that logo. You say, "Oh, that I can Shazam that commercial, and something will happen." And you want to take your device out and go ahead and use it.
Hmm.
So I'm, I like playing with Into Now. Shazam I've used primarily for music, but I've been more apt to go ahead and pull it out during a commercial and kind of see what's going to happen once I go ahead and tag that commercial with the app. Um, what are some of the other services that are out there that you find interesting that some people might want to be aware of?
Sure. So, one of the services that I kind of stumbled across, it wasn't something that I've used in the past, but um, I was doing some research and looking at what other platforms are out there. So, there's a service called, I believe it's pronounced Arctan. It's Arktan. And what Arctan is doing is providing specific community pages around networks. So, USA Network is one of the first stations to really use Arctan to power their community, but they've done deep integrations with each one of their shows, and it's through a platform they're calling Character Chatter. And it's something that they're promoting through their shows and they're promoting online. And really, what this allows you to do is dive deep into each one of the shows. So you can get character background, you can learn a little bit more about the plot line through each of the episodes. You can, get insight into the folks that are making the show and, what decisions they're making about the characters. And then while the show itself is airing, you can obviously jump in there and you can chat with other fans and you can watch behind the scene videos. And so it's really creating a community around the show. And rather than saying, hey, let's let companies like Into Now and Get Glue control our conversation, we want to be proactive about it and say, hey, anybody that wants to use a second screen can go ahead and open up our specific app and we'll cater to that community. We'll provide information there that you won't find anywhere else. And I thought that was really an interesting use of this second screen technology and something that I think we'll see other stations start to experiment with as well. One thing that popped up recently, because I actually got an email invite from you, Adam, was Viggle, and I believe this is a new network. Did you get a chance to play around with that at all? And
Yeah, I find it interesting because Get Glue really is gamifying TV watching, right?
yep.
So for those that aren't familiar with it, Get Glue has I don't remember. I could swear that it's more than that, but I thought the number that I saw recently was 1 million users, likely more. But essentially, it's a mobile application. It's on a tablet. It's on the smartphone. And as you're watching, and in fact, it's actually not just as you're watching TV, but a lot of people end up using it primarily for checking in with TV. So if you think of Foursquare as checking in when you're at a specific location, well, Get Glue is a way to check in when you're doing something kind of for fun. So you can check in when you're watching TV. You can and what specific show you're watching. You can check in when you're watching a movie and what specific movie you're watching. Books, video games, and just kind of a bunch of other hodgepodge of general stuff. But primarily, people end up using it for watching TV. And when you use it, they gamify it. So when you use it, you end up earning badges or what they call stickers. So when you watch a show, you earn a sticker. And we've seen networks that are just kind of like letting people earn stickers for every single episode when it's played in real time and so on. But at any rate, it's gamifying it. It's making you feel that if you check in, you're going to earn something for checking in and be rewarded with something. And really, what you're rewarded with is just digital goods. And there's other kind of gamifying aspects of it that are a little more subtle. But Vigil, the interesting thing that they do with that is they bring brands into it. So whereas Get Glue is just kind of gamifying the TV watching experience and increasing engagement for those shows, and offering up some offers that have to do with like buying merchandise related to the show, Vigil gives brands the opportunity to actually market on there by rewarding viewers a certain number of points, and then those points can then be redeemed for actual merchandise, which kind of, I mean, it's really motivating for me as somebody who uses Get Glue quite often. I still enjoy using Get Glue, but I would it's just like exactly like Get Glue, but with this, I can get an Amazon card, I can get a Starbucks card, I can get $5 off of going to the movies. Those types of things that appeal to a broader audience. If you wanted to be one of those brands to incentivize viewers, I would imagine that the best thing to do initially is to segment your users and try to identify the type of programming that they would likely want to watch and find a way to associate yourself with those shows using an application like Vigil. Currently, actually, you don't even have to associate yourself with anything other than the Vigil app itself, because you are just part of the bevy of rewards essentially that they have available for those using the app to redeem. And it's only launched. We're talking in the last week, or no, actually, it's been about a month, I guess, is as long as it's been out, and I really think that it has a big chance of attracting a lot of brands who really would like to find a way to get in front of the types of audiences that are really engaging in the second screen experience and watching, TV shows and chatting with people about the TV shows and movies and other types of entertainment that they enjoy.
Yeah. It seems to me the challenge with a lot of these applications is that they've each got a piece of the puzzle that I want to see in something that I'm going to be using frequently. So, I think just running through the list real quick of some of the top ones, Shazam has really got the visual cue to check in and utilize the app. So this Shazam logo that they're putting on a lot of these commercials, it's something visual. You see it and you think to yourself, oh, I should, pull my phone out, check in. I know that I'm going to get some sort of reward or some sort of additional content for checking in. Then you've got Get Glue, and Get Glue, I think, has the gamification, which is really interesting. It also seems to have a really active network. I was surprised by, I would check into, recently I checked into the X Games, and people were already talking about some of the tricks that I had just seen on TV, 30 seconds prior. And so Get Glue is doing really well with getting people onto the network, getting people to discuss the shows and building a community that way.
But like we discussed before the podcast, right? This is it's great as a way to increase engagement around these different types of entertainment. But the advertising potential isn't quite there yet for brands that are not in the entertainment industry, right?
Yeah. And Vigil, I think that's interesting, having the physical rewards. There's always going to be a draw for people when they know that by checking in or taking an action, they can get physical rewards. And then I think into now, the ability to actively listen to the show and check in for you, I think is a very strong feature of that network. So, in my dream world, all four of those combine and form a super
Voltron.
app. Yes, exactly. They form a super app that has all these features that I want that are going to incentivize me. But until then, I think it's advantageous to really, keep an eye on all the major players and see what's working and keep track of this arena as it develops. And just looking at, part of why we're seeing this growth is some of the numbers that have come out. So, looking at some of the Shazam numbers that they released, they had They're claiming that campaigns had a 350% increase in engagement over ads that just had call to actions on screen, such as fan us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter. 350% is definitely nothing to sneeze at. That's a pretty significant increase over the social steps that a lot of brands have taken of just adding their social logos in the end.
And how can you actually measure just throwing up a Twitter or a Facebook logo on a commercial, right? When you actually have a Shazam logo on your commercial, just the pure fact that somebody is checked in using it is similar to having a unique URL that somebody is clicking on, or a unique QR code that somebody is engaging with. You can track it because you know that that's only been part of a particular commercial that's aired, and so there's a big shift in the advantage for using something like that in comparison to just slapping a social network logo onto a commercial.
Exactly. And they're even able to individually audio tag the same television spot on TV, on YouTube, and through your homepage, so they can tell when people Shazam it on those three specific channels and give you a breakout for, 40% of your audience viewed it on this channel, 40% of your audience viewed it on that channel, and 20% viewed it on your homepage. So there's a lot of potential data to unlock there from getting people to interact with the show. And once they do interact with the show, Shazam is seeing upwards of 25% of people actually taking an additional action. So not only are they just Shazamming to, see what's kind of behind the curtain, but they're redeeming offers, or they're requesting coupons, or they're watching video. They're really increasing the engagement. So for brands that are looking to extend that consumer relationship beyond just the 30 seconds of the TV spot, I think they're already seeing strong results from people who take that extra step, are willing to continue that engagement, assuming that the content the brand provides is valuable.
And if people end up getting a chance to listen to this here, because we're leading into the Super Bowl this weekend, if they get a chance to listen to this before the Super Bowl, they pay attention, because according to thelostremote.com, Shazam is going to power up to a third of the Super Bowl ads, which is a pretty considerable number, considering how many ads we're used to seeing during the Super Bowl, but even more importantly, how high profile that'll end up being. You're going to be watching the Super Bowl ads, and millions of people are going to be watching it, and the Shazam logo is going to pop up quite frequently. So try it out. Have your mobile device there next to you. If you don't plan to, I'm sure you do. Just check out who's rooting for who on your social networks and so on, and try it and see the differences. If it's a third of these folks that are going to use Shazam, try it on every single one that has a Shazam logo on it, and see where it ends up leading you. Seeing if it all ends up just leading to a website, that might be a little disappointing, but see if it ends up leading to something a little bit more interesting and engaging, and use it kind of as a way to pop up some new ideas of how you might end up using it.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it's a make or break moment for Shazam, but definitely being integrated with a third of the TV spots. And interestingly enough, that's up from a single TV commercial that they were integrated with last year. So huge growth on their side, but powering up to a third of the commercials, there's definitely going to be a lot of eyes looking for results coming out of the Super Bowl to see really how many people did in fact interact with the commercials, what the response was, whether or not they just, did it for the novelty factor, or if they did actually interact with the brand once they were there. Speaking of the Super Bowl, another link that you had sent, Adam, was talking about the Coca-Cola Bear application. And one of the stats that I thought was interesting is Coca-Cola developed this application under some research that they had done, indicating that upwards of 60 million TV viewers were going to be using a second screen device while watching the Super Bowl. Obviously, the Super Bowl is a bit of a unique case. People are watching it, and they're looking to interact, and they're looking to network,
yell
with
at their friends who are rooting for the rival teams.
Network, yell at, but basically, they're looking to enhance their experience using their mobile device. And so what Coca-Cola is doing is they're actually going to create an entire experience that lasts the length of the game. So they've got their Coca-Cola polar bears, and these Coca-Cola polar bears are going to react to the game. So they see a great play, they're going to get excited. If they see a little risque halftime show, Mama Polar Bear might cover the eyes of the smaller bears. So it's going to be an interesting take on the second screen experience, I think, rather than trying to, talk about coupons or downloads or additional content. What Coca-Cola is doing is they're just augmenting the experience itself, and it's more of a brand play. So it'll be interesting to see if people utilize that and actually get enjoyment out of it, or if the novelty wears off after a couple minutes and that gets put away and people focus their attention elsewhere.
I think it's actually one of the smartest things I've heard in a long time. Having something that is not just going to have a 30-second or 60-second spot, but really kind of live on throughout the game, and uh, you'll see it build up, right? It takes a few folks to discover it, for them to share it with the next few folks and the next few folks and the next few folks, until I would be really interested to see the final numbers and level of engagement that Coca-Cola gets out of this. And just like you said, it really is strictly a brand play. It's just being present. People recognize the polar bears with the Coke bottle in hand, and so they're taking an event where they know that there's a large group of folks that would be a target market for them. Which for Coca-Cola, I mean, it's half the world, right? But they're focusing their efforts on that event, and kind of taking themselves out of the mix of having to compete for the eyeballs again for those more limited spaces of commercials.
Yeah, yeah, that'll be interesting. Um, Another big player in the Super Bowl that I was impressed to see the amount of effort they're putting towards a second screen application was Chevy. I'm not sure if you got a chance to download this application and play around with it, but it's their Chevy Game Time app, and Chevy is really taken the second screen experience for the Super Bowl, and they're expanding it to the days before the Super Bowl, the days following the Super Bowl. They've got multiple ways of interacting with the app. They've got multiple giveaways. They've got commercials that are promoting the second screen app to use during their other commercials. They're really going, all out in terms of promoting this second screen experience. And speaking of putting money where their mouth is, they're actually giving away 20 different vehicles through this app or related to promotions around this app. One of which being anybody who downloads the app before the Super Bowl is automatically registered to win a Camaro convertible, which, for a bunch of people, that would be an awesome prize. So I'm sure they've got tons of users already downloading it and checking it out just for that. But, what do you think of Coke's moves, Adam, in terms of focusing on the Super Bowl and really being a big brand that's willing to put a lot of backing into this second screen experience?
You talking about Chevy versus Coke? You said Coke.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chevy.
No, no problem. The interesting thing is they're coming from a different direction, right? So where we're talking about brands opportunities with apps that are already out there, with platforms that have been created for them to participate in. Chevy here is basically saying, no, we're creating our own experience. So they're putting a lot of effort into creating an application that is completely theirs, and the experience is completely owned and run by them. And they're doing it with kind of, I think it's a long term and a short term, right? They look at it initially and say, look, we can take advantage of this initial push of this big Super Bowl thing, of the opportunity to give away a number of these vehicles and this big stage that is the whole Super Bowl event and the week leading up to it, to get people to download an app branded with our brand. And anybody who's tried, for instance, the apps are big things that people are downloading millions of apps all the time, right? That's all you hear in the news. That's all you hear on the web. But when people go out and they try to release their own application, what do you want to say? Leaping that hurdle of getting users to actually go and download your application is the difficult part. If people don't have an incentive and you're trying to sell an to get people to download an application simply for the sake of of having something branded on their phone that you can interact with them as often as you want with them, or to get them to build some brand affinity through that app. It's very hard just to get them to download it and install it in the first place. There's only so much room on your device to do so, and it takes some effort to do that. So the interesting thing here is they're saying, look, the incentive is you could win a car,
Right.
you could win a Chevy vehicle here, uh, and so in the short term, they're going to get a lot of people who are going to download the application. They're going to forget the application is on there. But in the long term, they're going to now have an opportunity to do things like update the app for other experiences, send out push notifications and things that will engage with people in their own channel that they control now that they have that, what do you want to say, space taken up on the dock of that person's mobile device. So I think what they're doing is really interesting, and we're seeing that both of these brands, both Chevy and Coke, they're large, huge brands, right? And so their opportunity, their willingness to take risks in doing this, putting a lot of effort into whether it be making a full entire app and really pushing people there and giving away very expensive product to incentivize folks. Coca-Cola, not really necessarily putting out a bunch of product per se to do what they're doing, but there's a lot of effort that's put into having something interactive and engaging like they're doing out there as well. Most kind of small and medium sized businesses aren't going to have the opportunity to do that, and also the audiences coming to the Super Bowl are kind of there's so many different types of people that are attending these events that it's perfect for a brand like Chevy or Coca-Cola that really appeals to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a good way it's a good way of really getting yourself in front of these folks at the Super Bowl, and there may be a way to apply this on a smaller scale for some of the lesser brands that are listening to the podcast or don't have all the resources to kind of turn around and build an app and give away a bunch of cars. But I think it's really interesting how they've built their own channel.
Yeah, I think Chevy is sort of setting the bar for other brands in terms of creating your own application and getting users to download and pay attention to that application during the game. They're basically saying if you're not willing to put up 20 cars and millions of dollars worth of advertising to promote your app, how are you going to compete with us? So for a small to mid-sized brand, I think the answer is, well, I'm not. I'm going to put my focus elsewhere. I'm going to look at things like Get Glue and Shazam and some of these other channels where instead of trying to, like you said, build up your own audience and get people to use that app, instead you can integrate with an action that people are already taking, which is checking into either a TV show or a commercial. So I think that's really where the opportunity lies for small brands, but it is interesting to see, brands like Chevy and Coke essentially legitimize second screen marketing and second screen applications by putting a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of media support towards it, which is, again, I think why this is really the year of the second screen application, why we're seeing a lot of these new opportunities pop up.
If you go back to one of the service providers that you were talking about before, Arctan, that has kind of they essentially create this social hub on your website for all the conversations happening around particular topics, and the ones that I saw on Arctan, and I think you might have seen as well, was around the USA Network TV shows. Is that what you ended up seeing up there?
Yep.
That reminds me of another company out here that I know that does that, called Echo. You can find information about them at aboutecho.com.
Yep.
And they do similar things. They actually allow people quite easily, with fairly minimal effort. You can make it simple or you can make it complex if you want, to go ahead and build these kind of communication hubs that allow people to have conversations around a particular topic, whether it be a TV show or an event or something like that.
Yep.
It reminds me kind of in a way of that, is it the Road to Super Bowl thing that Twitter was doing, that we talked about a couple shows back?
Yeah, Road to the Super Bowl.
And how that really was using Twitter as a communication hub for what was going on during the Super Bowl. It wasn't necessarily second screen, but I'm sure much of the discussions happening around there were people using their mobile devices as they were watching the game. But it was also kind of that after effect that happens as people continued to discuss what was going on. With the players that they enjoyed and the teams and so on leading up to things. But it was this communications hub that was very Twitter centric right there.
Yeah.
So, um,
So funny you should mention Echo. Echo actually powers the Arctan platform. So I think Arctan essentially put the skin and put the development on top of Echo's data. So Echo is very much involved in a lot of the second screen development. They're just not the face of a lot of these applications, but they are certainly one of the things that developers can look at as a way to bring some of these experiences to life.
or those with development, or those with development departments, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's obviously some budget involved there, but hopefully that it cuts down on the budget and time required to get one of these programs up and running. And the other issue that you bring up, which I think is interesting, is let's not forget Twitter as a second screen opportunity. And it's not as controlled as something like Into Now or something like Shazam, but no less important and definitely a channel where a lot of conversation is going on. And one of the most recent TV to Twitter events that happened was Obama's State of the Union address. And this
That's right.
was something that, was heavily promoted online. They live streamed it. They allowed people to view it in all different fashions. And as a result, during the State of the Union itself, so during the live talk, not afterwards, not prior, during the live State of the Union, 766,000 tweets were sent about the State of the Union. So really just a tremendous amount of conversation going on. There's obviously, tens and hundreds of thousands of users involved in that conversation. So it's not something that the brand can control as much, but it's definitely something that brands should be aware of and should be paying attention to, because there is a lot of opportunity to focus on networks like Twitter that have people discussing anyways. And when these events happen, that discussion moves to those networks where people are familiar and comfortable with already.
Yeah, and there we have a question here since we're using the Google Hangout to interact with folks here. We've got Derek Overby who has a great question for us. He says, "How do you think that the Cokes and Chevys of the world are looking past the spike of this one event? In this instance, it was the Super Bowl we were talking about. And will these apps have any life after the fact?" I've got my opinion on it, but I want to let you go for it, Corey. What do you think?
Well, the apps that they're developing for the Super Bowl, in my opinion, kind of live and die with the Super Bowl, which I think is an interesting decision. You've got Coke putting out their app, which is designed to let you interact with the polar bear, which is a character that they don't bring out a lot. It's brought out during the wintertime and it's brought out during the Super Bowl, but you're interacting with this character that's going to interact with the Super Bowl specifically. I don't know that they would necessarily reboot that and have this character interact with everything. I don't know that you're going to watch the polar bear watching the State of the Union address and, yaying or naying things that the polar bear agrees with. So that application specifically, I think, really focuses on the Super Bowl. And Chevy, the name of their application is Chevy Game Time. So it would be difficult for them to reboot that for anything outside of the sports world. They could certainly repurpose it for something like the World Series or, maybe the Olympics, something like that, these major sporting events. But it seems like both of these applications are really focused exclusively on the Super Bowl. Now, what I think they're going to do is use this as a test to say, all right, if we do put a lot of time and we put a lot of money in this, are we seeing results? Is this something that we should explore further? And then if the answer is yes, if they see people using it, if they see people interacting with it, they'll likely look to develop a more frequent channel and something that would be used on a more ongoing basis. But I see these two opportunities for the Super Bowl specifically as being tests for these companies to see if the market's ready and their consumers are willing to interact with the brand on that level.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think Coke obviously is very limited with what they're doing specifically, and in thinking about this application more. I mean, I don't take back exactly what I said earlier about it living on as much, but I do see that there definitely is some limitations put on it due to how the app is branded, being the Game Time app, versus just simply Chevy centric. But they may get creative and do something like you said that's sports oriented after the fact, because they don't. I don't think necessarily they really. Well, I guess they do have a little football on there or something, but hey, you never know. You never know what they're going to end up doing with it. I do completely agree also though, that they are using it as testing grounds. I think the over the last, I think it was 2 or 3 Super Bowls, we've seen that brands have tried very hard to use the Super Bowl as a way to kind of not just do a really awesome commercial anymore. They want to like do a commercial that adds a certain level of creativity and engagement, kind of incites discussion, knowing that the social web is out there. And so everything from, I think what we've talked about previously, the Doritos. I think that's specifically for the Super Bowl, right? They have that contest for the user generated videos, and leading up months before the Super Bowl, they've got people in a way competing to have their commercial be seen on the Super Bowl. And that whole discussion happening all the way up to it leads to kind of eyeballs watching for those commercials. And in this case, now we have Chevy and Coke. And I believe anybody who's deciding to try out doing some Shazam commercials as well, trying to test it out and say, let's see how effective this is with a really broad, wide audience, and then if it works, let's now try it out in a different way and see how we can maybe add some more permanence to the experience.
Yeah. And that also brings up a good point that haven't yet mentioned, which is that second screen, the advantage of a second screen experience is you've still got the first screen experience. So you've still got this television commercial that's reaching the entire NFL audience, or at least those that are paying attention to the commercial breaks. And you're just adding, either a Shazam logo or a little tag for people to go to the second screen experience for those that want to take that extra step and want to increase their interaction. But you're not losing out on the typical results of a commercial buy. So really any results that you're seeing from these second screen experiences are essentially icing on the cake of an otherwise hopefully well thought out and well planned commercial buy that's going to drive results for you as is. So, I think that's one of the advantages is you can test and really use it as additional data for this test rather than having to sacrifice your entire commercial just to try to push the second screen experience. And I think that's part of the reason why big brands like Coke and big brands like Chevy that rely on something like the Super Bowl to promote their brand and to get the word out are willing to experiment with some of these really unproven technologies, because they know that at the end of the day, their commercial's still getting seen. They're just hoping for a little extra interaction out of the second screen experience.
Similar to QR codes, and I think we discussed this one before too, where when you have a QR code like that, I think it was the Domino's in the UK, I think it was.
Yep.
You have a billboard on the side of a bus station, and the advantage of using the QR code to have to kind of trigger this augmented reality experience is that if you don't have augmented reality, everybody who's walking by that ad can still see the ad without any issues.
Right.
And so it's augmented reality, and in essence, using Shazam really is kind of like an augmented reality almost, in a way as well. I mean, like you said, it's just augmenting the experience and not interrupting the experience that anybody who kind of wasn't privy to Shazam or didn't feel like whipping their phone out would have. But you talked about it being, that the first screen experience is still there, and what will happen when devices like Google TV, Apple TV, Roku, and all kinds of other more connected devices now that are showing content directly from the internet are become more and more prevalent. We're seeing that happen right now. It's going to continue to kind of grow, where your TV now, when Apple comes out with their mythical Apple TV device in the future, not the little small box, but an actual fully connected TV. Is that going to change that so that you have this meshed experience of first and second screen on the same device?
Um, I think it's an interesting question, and part of why it's interesting is because the second screen applications are by no means proven. They're still, fighting for audience and fighting for users, but it doesn't mean we can't, try to think and try to anticipate 5, 10 years ahead of time. And I definitely see these connected devices like Google TV, like the Roku boxes, being an opportunity to merge this first and second screen experience. So, you can already see the opportunities with Google TV where while you're watching a TV show, you just hit the search box and it brings up a little search light box and you can browse the internet while watching the TV screen. So you don't even have to take your eyes off the screen. You can essentially do both. You can interact with the second screen while still watching the first screen, and it all happens on one screen. It's sort of merging of those two worlds. So, on the short term time frame, I think Into Now and Shazam, I think they've got a long runway still, and we're going to see a lot of growth and a lot of experimentation there. But I wouldn't be surprised if the eventual place that we end up at is all of these coming back into the first screen. So, Shazam developing an app for platforms like Google TV and allowing you to interact with the commercials through the TV itself rather than relying exclusively on a mobile device or a tablet. Would you agree with that?
No, I don't actually. No, I
All
don't. I think
right.
that's the first time we've had a. I'm going to say no, Corey. I don't agree. And so the interesting thing is I was really bullish a while back on connected TV, connected devices, coming to the first screen, to your home, big screen, so to speak. And I attended a discussion about kind of bringing social to the living room and primarily to your main TV device. And there was some great folks on the panel, and some of them were kind of really bullish and such on Google TV and Apple TV and Boxy and all these systems really kind of bringing social and engagement directly to the TV. And there was a couple folks that were saying, no, no, I don't think it's going to happen, and this is why. And the interesting thing is it initially took a while for it to sink in for me about the fact that people, when they're viewing on that single screen, when they're viewing on their TV, they don't at the same time necessarily, it's that kind of lean back experience right on your couch where you're leaning back, you have this nice big picture and you can watch the whole thing across your screen. And then now turn around and start adding additional frames of content that's continually scrolling and stuff on that screen. It's very difficult to actually see that content and to properly engage with that content. I think that somebody is going to have to rethink how that content ends up being juxtaposed against a TV program that you're watching.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why a second screen, so to speak, and as I say this, I'm holding up in the Google Hangout my iPad, but when you have that second screen, you have something right there in front of you. It's easy not only to read, but it's also easier to kind of engage with. If you're starting to type something, you're typing something and touching something and dealing with it right there in front of you. So I think it's actually primarily the proximity and the format of the content that you end up displaying, where social content ends up being things like little thumbnails and feeds filled with text and profiles and such. Things that you're watching, like programs, TV programs and movies, end up being larger, and we want them to fill up our screen, and we kind of sit back and absorb all that stuff. So I think that at the moment, uh the second screen experience being pulled into the first screen, there's nothing that I see promising about the directions that folks like Google TV and Roku and even Apple, of course, in the current form, which doesn't have any sort of social experience going on. I don't think their approaches at the moment point to anything good coming out of that merging of the two experiences just yet. But it'll be interesting to see how they try to solve that, in the future and not interrupt people's viewing experience.
Yeah, definitely. It's a challenge, and like I said, it's at least a few years out. So it's something where we'll see an evolution of both the second screen technology and the first screen technology. And it will be interesting to see how companies adapt to that, and really what the future holds for that second screen experience.
Understood. Yeah, yeah. And um So, let's kind of wrap things up with a few, reviewing a few of the points that we talked about, and summing things up a bit here. Uh, what should marketers be thinking about, moving forward? What are some of the resources that they should be checking out, next steps, and how they might kind of test the waters in this area?
Sure. Well, I think my go to answer for this question is always just to familiarize yourself with the environment, play with a couple of these apps, get a feel for what you personally like, what you personally don't like about the experience, see how other brands are handling it, Shazam a couple of TV spots, check in with Into Now to a couple of shows, and see what that experience is like from the consumer side of things. And then once you've experienced it from the consumer side of things, think as a marketer, how best could you aid the consumers that are going through those steps? What kind of information, what kind of experience could you give them that would make that enjoyable and make them want to interact with your brand beyond just seeing a product placement on TV or seeing a commercial? I think the second takeaway would be to not be afraid to experiment. So when big brands like Coke and Chevy are willing to experiment and test things out and see what works and kind of break new ground. I think it's a market with a lot of room for experimentation and a lot of room for trying new things, and there are really no best practices right yet. And we're just seeing the initial results off of some initial Shazam campaigns, but that by no means is the final say in terms of what's going to work, what's not going to work, what your expected results are. The entire landscape could shift in 6 months' time. So, I think find opportunities, start to experiment, see what works, and just pay attention to this as a growing communication channel.
Yeah, and think about whether or not your brand or what you're trying to um, what you're trying to market, whatever it is, whatever the experience is that you're trying to have, whether that fits good for instance, we looked at a few different approaches. We looked at uh, interacting with something on during a show and having that bring people to additional content online. We looked at downloading an application that is very focused around a specific event and time frame and drawing people in that way. And we also talked about having content that is not alluded to or during the show, like the Coca-Cola, and having just kind of one way or another, it's all happening during a specific event, right? A period of time, and whether your brand and your service wants to take advantage of something that's very kind of short term but high in volume and eyes and visibility, or if you want to have a kind of more consistent effort across multiple episodes, for instance, of a TV show, or be part of an ongoing discussion that happens during a block of shows, like what I think I can't remember what the name of it. Viggle. I knew it was a weird name. Viggle has. So think about how your brand might take advantage of these different scenarios and different avenues for getting some eyes on the experience that you're offering them.
Yeah. So, a couple resources for anybody that's interested in learning a little bit more about Second Screen, keeping up with it, keeping up with the news. The first would be lostremote.com, and this was a site that we mentioned a couple times during the show. It's actually a great resource. In my opinion, it's kind of the leading resource for news and opinion about second screen viewing. A lot of great stuff being produced there. Also, bluefinlabs.com seems to be a great source of more statistical look at things, a little bit more research based, but again, a lot of great information coming out of there. And we'll include a link to both of those in the show notes. So it should be easy to find. And both of those, I think, would be great resources to subscribe to.
And we'll actually include a lot of links in the show notes, as we do with all of the other shows, and some links to check out some of the applications that we also mentioned and that we like. Be looking forward to seeing how Shazam does with the Super Bowl ads. I'm going to just have my device there the entire time, just waiting to hit that button and listen into the commercial or whatever it is that's going to pop up. Um, and can we want to wrap it up here, Cora, with all the great places that they can find us if they haven't been able to hang out with us at the Google Hangout?
Sure. So, big thanks goes out to everybody that was able to join us in the Google Hangout. Thanks for everybody that's listening to this on the podcast. If you'd like to reach Adam and I, we are available in a number of places. The first would be at Solo Mo Show on Twitter, or you can reach us directly. I'm at Corey O'Brien, and Adam can be reached at Secret Sushi. We also have a Solo Mo Show page on Google Plus.
It's a little sparse at the moment, but we need to get some folks over there and following us and joining us so that way we can go ahead and initiate our Google Hangouts from there, and you guys will be aware of when to join in on the fun.
Exactly. And then if you want to get in touch with us directly, we're available solomoshow@gmail.com. That's the email address, solomoshow@gmail.com. And we welcome anybody to get in touch. Feel free to ask us questions, suggest topics for future shows, give feedback, or even just to say hi. We'd love to get to know the audience and see who's out there. And if you do get a chance to listen to a couple of these episodes and like what you hear, feel free to rate us on iTunes. We would love some positive ratings there. It's a great way for others to discover the show and help us get the word out. So ratings on iTunes are always appreciated and help us help you. And with that, I think it's a wrap, Adam. So do this again next week. How's that sound?
Next week it is the second month of 2012 already. So we've done 4 in a row, right? This has been 4 weeks and 4 in a row.
This will be 4 weeks, 4 in a row, with the 5th coming up. And next week we should be able to touch briefly on a couple of the Super Bowl things that we had a chance to play around with and see what that experience is like. And we can share that with the audience. So that'll be fun.
Who are you rooting for at the Super Bowl?
Oh, man. I gotta go against the Giants just because they took the 49ers out of contention. So I think anybody but the Giants at this point.
All right, well, I'm with you because I don't really care too much now that the Niners aren't there. I'm gonna be busy, watching commercials and then taking breaks when all the sports is going on, probably because I'll be more interested in checking out all the Shazam stuff that's happening instead of the game. But that's just me.
All right, well, that sounds good. I will see you next week.
All right, take care.